Hello, welcome everybody. I'm sat with York MMA member Tom Killerley here, and he's going to give us a quick insight on what it's like into the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, BJJ, for a lot of people who've seen it about and want to know a bit more about it. So first and foremost, Tom, welcome to
Yeah,
this little
thanks.
vlog.
Thanks a lot for having me. Yeah, it's nice to have been asked to come on. So
No, I appreciate it. Obviously, I appreciate the time, and just tell everyone a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you're a BJJ enthusiast, and just what's so good about it, Tom? What's the secret that everyone's missing?
yeah, so I started doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I think the back end of 2017. So I've been doing it for about 3 years now, just over 3 years. And to be honest, I started out on a whim. I didn't really think that I was going to be doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. One of my friends knew that I was having a bit of a tough time with uni. I quite stressed out with exams and everything like that. Quite a lot of stuff in my personal life, and he told me about this club that I should try. And obviously, the first time you hear from your mate, "Oh, you should come down to the MMA club," you sort of think like, "Oh, these are going to be scary people, like beating each other up, killing each other, and stuff like that." But it couldn't have been further from the truth. Like we got there, and it was such a welcoming like environment as well. And I think a lot can be said from about the coaches at the time. Like we were pretty much a grassroots club. Like we didn't really have any professional coaching. So our Brazilian Jiu Jitsu coach at the time was a girl called Violet Bennett, and she's a purple belt now. She was a blue belt at the time, and she's like really high level for what she's doing. Like I have no doubt that she'll be pro eventually. She's really really good. But again, it was just people our age doing jiu-jitsu, doing it for something that they enjoyed. It wasn't really about like the quality of it more than it was the everyone enjoying it sort of thing, which is what I really enjoyed because we would go to like tournaments. Like I've competed myself, and we'd go to tournaments, and you'd have like like professional coaches on the teams and stuff, and it was only ever students that were on our coaching staff. We'd occasionally have seminars, or we'd have like um, kickboxing coaches would come in and do a bit of kickboxing. Like we had pretty high level wrestling coaching from a guy called Ian, who actually trained with I think it was Daniel Cormier. I actually think it genuinely was. It's like a story because he's like a Canadian wrestler, and he had like quite a lot of people. He definitely worked with like the Canadian wrestling team, like with the Olympics and stuff. Like he's so like high level, and he was a PhD at uni. So again, even though like a professional coach, he was a member of the university as well. So he was a student just as much as we were. So that was really nice. It was sort of like it was a welcoming environment. It was sort of like it fell at the right time as well. Like at that point in my life, like I hadn't really watched anything in the way of jiu-jitsu. I was a bit of a like a McGregor fanboy at that time. Much has changed now. I don't really like McGregor anymore, but I sort of knew a bit of jiu-jitsu just because of watching the UFC. But it was only through actually turning up and learning a bit of technique that I truly fell in love with the sport.
Just sticking with the subject of mental health and COVID-19, is obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a very physical, hands-on sport. You sweat on each other.
Yeah,
It's a gross sport in terms of body liquids will potentially
yeah,
end up on you at some point or another. And obviously, with COVID-19 and, as Tom stated earlier, the lockdown restrictions, that's very hard to come by in a safe environment at this moment in time. But the question I want to ask you, Tom, is how has your mental health been, obviously, with not being able to do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu? Because this, I presume, is your primary sport at this moment in
yeah.
time when COVID happens.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Yeah. Although I've wanted to be training like Muay Thai and boxing for quite a while. I haven't got around to joining the club. So yeah. So at the time, like before, obviously lockdown happened. Brazilian Jiu Jitsu was my uh I'd say escape. I would say from just like the laborious sort of life that you have. Like, um, yeah, it's tough, especially like you're saying. Like you forget little things with Jiu Jitsu. Like a lot of technique can be like there's a lot that can be used like with just your head. Like you can like press up against someone, and you can like essentially put it's called like a crossface, where if someone's like not if someone's not giving up a position, you can like make it uncomfortable for them. So one way of doing that is literally like using this part of your head and like just pressing it up against them, like putting pressure on with your head. And obviously, you can't do jiu-jitsu without a 2 meter like radius or 1 meter. It's just impractical. Um, but yeah, just going back to the point, the whole mental health thing, yeah, it's tough. The way I've been able to get around it is I've started running, which is something I never really thought I would do. Like, I'm not a massive big fan of cardio. I hated running. I'd always try and escape it if I could, and I feel like that was part of the problem. And I maybe my opinion of running hampered my ability to actually go out and do it. But yeah, as like a replacement, although it can't change. Like, it won't be a great substitute for what jiu-jitsu would be, knowing how I like to, what I like about the sport and stuff. But I've just have to make do and start running, because it's such a big loss as well. Like, the whole thing, like, you've got the social aspect of seeing your friends and rolling with them. You've got your training partners as well. Like, like I had one guy that I was training with at the Wigan place. Um, and we'd started this like beginners course, because I'd never done gi before. I'd only ever done no gi, so it was the first time I was doing like collar chokes and stuff like that. I'd never done that at uni, so I'd started at the very bottom with this guy, and we were getting on really well, and we'd train with each other like basically twice a week. And that, to have that like taken away from you, then it does leave quite a big hole. The same with like generally seeing your friends. You can't really do it in lockdown. You're sort of stuck in your house. You want to do something. Like, the amount of times I've been like saying, "Oh, Dad, can we like mat out our garage or something? Can I like show you how to do jiu-jitsu or something?" It's like any excuse to get it going. I've got one friend who's in Switzerland. He's so lucky. Like, the restrictions have been quite different to ours. And he was lucky that his sister also trains, and they're both at a Gracie affiliated gym in Zurich. And they've got like a matted out, like their conservatory, they've essentially matted out. So he has people round every weekend to train. Like, he's not stopped. Like, he's not having like, tuition, but he's able to roll and stuff. And I feel like that's something I'm so jealous about. I just can't wait to roll with someone, even if I get my ass kicked like the first time, which I undoubtedly would. It's just that sort of like, it's that sort of feeling you don't get from many other sports. Like jiu-jitsu, like we were saying before about this like welcoming environment. It's because there's no ego, or at least there shouldn't be ego. Like, although there is obviously a hierarchy of belts, like you do have, like there is a black belt is more respected and more important than a white belt, but it shouldn't really be, it shouldn't really like, end. It should really end at that. Really, like, everyone should feel like they're a part of the club in the same way, and rolling with each other. Like, I roll with purple belts, and I know that they're like so further ahead of me ability wise. But even then, like, you just get humbled. Like, you do something, you try and get a position, you lose it, you end up getting submitted. Like, you are essentially submitting to someone. It's a humbling experience. And I think that's the difference between MMA and jiu-jitsu is the ego aspect.
I would say, mate, would you say for anyone who's apprehensive for joining an individual sport, because for me myself, if I'm playing devil's advocate here and I'm a neutral, I've only ever played team sports. I've only played football within a squad of 17, let's say, for example. And for the pressure from me to be burdened by 17 other lads, and now the focus is on me, would you say, even if you have already played a team sport, would you still feel like it's a good jump to jiu-jitsu?
Absolutely, yeah. I played rugby up until I was 18. So I played like maybe 8 or 9 years of rugby. Probably until I was 19, actually. Yeah. So, well, I'll say a good 9 years of rugby. So obviously a team sport. And the way I look at it, and I don't know whether like everyone else does this, but it's the way I've always looked at it. Is that, like, I feel like it is a team sport in a way as well. Like, especially when you think about tournaments, when you're like representing your club, like York. I represented York a few times during my time there, and I always felt like whether I lost or whether I won or lost, it didn't matter, because it was overall how the team did, like individually. it's a silly way of, it's not maybe the most logical way of thinking of it, but I always did think it was a team thing, and I think it's the same with the club. Like if you're like training with someone who's going on to a competition, and like you're indirectly helping by or directly helping by rolling with them, whether you're getting beat by them or beating them, and giving them a different way of, maybe approaching something, I feel like is benefiting people. And I feel like that is a team working. Like I think that's people working together as a collective. Um, so I've always been a believer of it being like, although yeah, when you're there in the fight, it's just you and the other person, but you've got your cornermen, you've got your friends who are supporting you. You've got quite a lot of different people that make up what I would say is a team. Like you've got the one fighter, fair enough, but it's like a Formula One in a way as well. Like it's everyone behind the scenes that are important as well. Um, I'd absolutely would recommend joining it, even if I was saying this actually. So at our uni when we do the fight nights, the door staff, like the bouncers essentially, are all volunteers from the rugby club. And I remember having conversations with them, and they were saying, "Oh, like, would you like be okay with us coming down?" So absolutely come down. Like, you should definitely come down because it'll help you, like in your rugby as well. Like, we all know how much rugby players like to have a scrap. So if they can, if they've got any pointers from us, then that's us our job done in it. But more so in a way that like it does have its sort of um like it has like its crossovers quite a lot as well, like in terms of sports. Like if you do yoga, you'd be great at jiu-jitsu. Like if you do jiu-jitsu, you'll also probably be quite good at yoga. Like just in terms of like flexibility and stuff, like improves your flexibility loads to do jiu-jitsu, and the other way around with yoga as well. Um, Rugby as well, like anything to do with like the maul in rugby union, you're looking at like the clinch or like just wrestling with each other as well. Like they do have like the sort of like crossovers which do help in the sport as well. Um, so yeah, I 100% would say I'd recommend it to anyone, to be honest. Like because it's a sport that if you look at it anywhere, like you'll see people who are like 60 or 70 who are still doing jiu-jitsu. It's a sport that anyone can do. Like there's blind people who can do jiu-jitsu. There's people who have no legs that do jiu-jitsu. Like it's almost acceptable. Like anyone's accepted. Um, Anyone can do it. If they put the mind to it, sort of thing. I'm a big believer in that as well. Like I've always enjoyed. I've always been that sort of person who's hoping to open doors for people, and I feel like you know if you have any thought about it, if you maybe think that it's not for you, just give it a go. Because the worst thing that can happen is you go and you hate it, but at least you've gone and done it. That's what I would say.
Into anyone who is suffering from mental health at this moment in time and they are a bit scared to try something new or anything, what advice would you give that person, Tom, just before we leave you?
100% um, speak to someone because a problem shared is a problem halved. Even if someone who even if you speak to someone and they can't help, it's sometimes better to just get things out in the open. If your friends know that you're suffering, friends are good and loyal. They'll see you right. Um, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to speak about how you feel. I'm someone as well who struggled with that, but speak, um, run, endorphins any way you can. Honestly, as much as it sucks at first, and it really does suck. Um, just any way of getting just positive thoughts in, clearing your head, listening to a piece of music that you like, chatting to someone, calling your mum, anything that you can do that you think would give you a bit of a boost, just go and do it. Like, um, don't don't let the negativity take over your entire life because it can, and it can do it quite quickly as well. Just yeah, as I say, find the positives that you can. Share your problems because people will help. Like people aren't going to think worse of you because you're struggling. They'll want you not to struggle. They'll want to help you. Me as well. Like I don't even know who, I don't care if I don't know you, sort of thing. If you're struggling, I'll be the sort of person that, will listen to you. And there'll be tons of people like that. You've got tons of charities and organisations that help. But yeah, don't let it chew you up, because it will. It'll consume you if you let it to.